Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Vagina Healing Podcast. My name is Takira, and I'm a vaginal health dietitian that frees women from cycles of chronic vaginal infections. So, if you have been dealing with yeast infections, BV, mycoplasma, ureaplasma, aerobic vaginitis, hemolytic vaginosis, or any other pH imbalances, you are in the right place. And someone on TikTok had commented saying they would love to hear how I healed myself from yeast infection. So, this episode is going to be on my story with how I dealt with these infections and also how I ended them for good, and also giving you guys a blueprint starter kit to also heal from chronic yeast infection. So make sure you're following me on all platforms at vaghealingnutrition.rd. Vag is with a J. I created a new YouTube channel, so that is linked down below in my link tree, and that's where I have all of my mindset tools and things like that. So to get started with this episode, I want to give you guys my backstory. So my first ever vaginal infection was a yeast infection, and it was a yeast infection that ended up not going away and staying and literally destroying my life for 2 years. So this was back when I was in college. It was 2017. Um, I was having unprotected sex with one guy for over a year, and this guy was uncircumcised. So that's just to give you guys that detail because that's important to know, because when your vaginal microbiome is not strong enough to fight off opportunistic microbes like Candida, then raw sex, especially someone that's uncircumcised, can be a high risk because they carry more bacteria than someone who is circumcised, regardless of how clean they are. And this person was really clean. Like they were always really clean, no odor, nothing. So keep that in mind. When your vaginal microbiome is not strong enough, and you're having sex and doing all these things, you're at more risk for getting STDs, STIs, and also recurring vaginal infections. So that was number one. Number two is the fact that I was in college, so I was not eating healthy at all. At all. I used to drink a lot, not a lot, but like I would drink every weekend, not during the week, but I would drink every weekend, and we would drink a lot on the weekends. And I would also smoke a lot and eat a lot. So I used to have a bin under my bed that was filled with snacks, like hella munchies, hella snacks. So I was not eating great in college. I was drinking a lot. I have no idea how. Probably no. I think my hydration was good. I used to use a reusable water bottle. I don't really remember how my hydration was before. Either way, I was kind of a good candidate to start getting recurring vaginal infections because my diet was trash. I was drinking. Not that smoking is bad for you, but I was smoking and overly eating. And then on top of that, I was having unprotected sex with someone who was uncircumcised. So that just gives you guys the background. So then I got a yeast infection. I had gotten tested. Every STDs, STIs were negative, but yeast was present. So they gave me diflucan. I took diflucan, but then after that, the yeast infection never went away, and it just persisted. And so after that, it was 2017, ending of sophomore year for me in college. So I went home and I was back home, and I was dealing with these yeast infections, and I've never even had a yeast infection in my life. So to be dealing with a yeast infection randomly out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden it's persistent, I started going crazy because I was having really bad symptoms. I was constantly itching. I was always having a weird discharge. I felt really inflamed down there. And I kept going to my GYN getting diflucan and it wasn't working. And so I started looking up home remedies. And so these remedies and stuff, I do not recommend any of them because it's not a healthy way of getting rid of a yeast infection. At the time, I was really young and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was trying anything I saw online. So I would put like oregano oil and tea tree oil on a tampon and keep it in my vagina. Because at this time, I was working at Dunkin' Donuts and I used to work double shifts. I would work every day, all day long. So I was constantly having to walk and stand. And so it was really uncomfortable for me to be at work with this yeast infection. So I was always like putting tampons inside of me with tea tree and oregano oil. And I was doing all these crazy things to get rid of it. But my vagina was so like hot and inflamed all the time. So it was just like a lot of back and forth. Um, and nothing was helping me at all. So this is 2017. And so for the next 2 years, I basically just dealt with the infections. I'm trying to remember the years. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So basically, there's 2 years of just like agony of these infections. So I wasn't really having sex, and if I was having sex, I was using a condom. And then what had happened was January of 2019. So now we're like 2 years later of me dealing with the yeast infections constantly with no resolution, no medications working, nothing I was doing was working. I was feeling really, really, really defeated, really ashamed, really down because I didn't understand, and I didn't know anyone else that was dealing with chronic vaginal infections. I had one friend at the time who had BV, and I didn't even know what BV really was. Um, so yeah, so January 2019, I went abroad to the Netherlands, and I felt like this was a new opportunity for me to really just start somewhere fresh. And I literally just decided that I was going to heal myself. I didn't know how the fuck I was going to do it. I just decided that I'm going to heal from this for good, and this will never happen to me again. So when I moved to the Netherlands, I went on like this insanely strict diet. So it was like a combination of like the Candida diet with like all these like detoxing and fasting protocols. So these things, I'm telling you guys my story. I'm not recommending these things to you because these are not healthy ways to heal. With what I know now, there are way easier and healthier ways to heal from this. So do not follow these things I'm doing. This is just my backstory. So I was following a really strict diet. I wasn't eating that much things at all. I was eating the same things over and over again. I was eating really low carb, like basically almost no carb at all. I still was eating some carbs, like if I craved a chocolate bar here and there, or if I craved, I think the most sweets I ate was like a chocolate bar every once in a while, but I wasn't really eating any other sweets at all. Um, I can't really remember what I was eating because this was like years ago and I was also in Europe. So like, I was eating very strictly. Just know that. Like it was mainly like vegetables and hella smoothies and hella teas, like sea moss tea, clove tea, like black seed oil. I like it was just so much I was doing. I was also doing lots of fastings. I would go 3 days without like eating anything. I would just like do like water fasting or smoothie fasting. Like liquid fast. I would also use these detox goddess pearls that was from this company. Her name is Olanki, I think. And these I wouldn't recommend. I would not mind recommending them now. Like these detox pearls are like these little pearls of herbs that you put in your vagina and it helps to like take out any like. It can be used for like spiritual cleansing, but also it can be used to help remove any imbalances or toxins in your vagina. Of course, they're not backed by Western medicine or science, but I feel like those were actually pretty great because when I used those, a lot of mucus was coming out of my vagina. So I remember using that for a while. I remembered I was doing sea moss and chlorophyll and black seed oil and all those typical herbs. I remember also I was eating really healthy, so lots of vegetables, lots of protein. I wasn't really eating much starches or sweets in general. I was drinking a lot of water and I was also exercising a lot. Like I was going for a run every single day because I also wanted to lose weight and clear up my acne. And within 3 months of all of these like strict protocols, my yeast infections finally stopped. And I remember the feeling of relief because it took 3 months for me to heal. And I had lost so much weight. I think I lost like 20, 30 pounds. My face was completely cleared. Like I had no acne at all. Like that was one time in my life where I literally had zero acne, like zero. Like my face was completely just clear. Um, and I stopped wearing underwear for a while. And I remember I was able to finally walk places with no underwear. And I felt so much relief and this cooling sensation. Like I was no longer burning, I was no longer itchy, I was no longer inflamed. And even when I was in the Netherlands, I was still going to doctor's offices to get a different opinion because I'm like, okay, maybe European doctors can figure this out for me. And so I went to a lot of doctors when I was also in the Netherlands, and some of them said it was yeast, some of them said it was UTI, some of them said that it was mycoplasma and ureaplasma. So my yeast infection had transitioned from yeast to mycoplasma and ureaplasma, and then at one point in between, then I had a UTI like once or twice. I think it was once or twice. I can't remember how many times. Um, but so I dealt with all of those things within the last 2 months, and then I was able to heal myself from all those imbalances. And it's easy for you to hop from one imbalance to another when your vaginal microbiome is lacking protective bacteria. So it's common when if you have a yeast infection, you can go to BV or mycoplasma, ureaplasma, whatever, because it's out of balance anyway. So these microbes are just overtaking and doing whatever they want to do. So after 3 months of all of that pain and all that issue and stuff, and just to give you guys even more details, when I was in Europe while I was healing, I was crying so much to the point where I wanted to come home because I felt like I couldn't even really enjoy my study abroad because when you're in Europe, it requires lots of traveling, lots of walking. And I couldn't really do that without these really severe symptoms. And I remember being in Spain and feeling so embarrassed because I had to go to the pharmacy and I had to try to translate in Spanish, can you give me something for a yeast infection? And not only was I dealing with the vaginal symptoms, I was also having really bad anal itching. So like it was just so much at once and I couldn't wear underwear. I couldn't like do much. And so it was really, really, really like a downtime, like a really depressing time in my life for me. But I remember April, because I started my healing process in January. April is when things really started to change for me. And I remember feeling more relief. I remember feeling back to my normal self. I remember feeling like I could walk around and do things and not worry. And I started feeling so good again. So I knew from that point that I had healed. And so by the time I returned home from study abroad, that was June 2019, I was completely healed from yeast infections. And so from that point on, my sexual hygiene was way better. I always used condoms after that. Like maybe a few times I didn't use condoms, but after that, I always, always, always use condoms. Like, I was not fucking around after that. Um, I didn't use condoms when I got my first adulthood boyfriend, but otherwise, I would use condoms. My diet was still pretty healthy because at this point, I was now a nutrition major. So I was a dietetics major. Before, I wasn't. I was still into herbs and natural healing, but only when there was a problem. So it wasn't like consistently me being healthy and natural. It was only when I had a problem. But after that situation, I still ate like a normal person in college, but I was definitely way healthier. I incorporated more fruits. I prioritized my hydration. I was eating more yogurt, and so that situation changed how I ate and how I hydrated and also changed my sexual hygiene practices and stuff. And so I was completely fine. And I at this time I didn't know that once you killed off an infection like that, you have to constantly keep restoring your microbiome. So I did the killing without the restoration. And so I was fine for many years. So that was 2019 up until 2023 when this weekend specifically, well, 2023 is honestly like I would say the worst year of my life. That year, I dealt with so much shit that year from like a breakup to like moving out of my parents' house and living with friends for a few months, having nowhere to live or call like my own home, dealing with like financial struggle of not really having a good job. So that year I was in survival mode heavily. It was also the year I took my RD exam. So lots of stress in that year. So you guys already know if you've been following me, you know how much of an impact stress plays on your health, on your vaginal microbiome, on your body odor, on just everything, and how it suppresses your immune system. And so in August 2023, this specific weekend, I wore really tight shorts and we were drinking that weekend. And I got a yeast infection. I was like, okay, I'm not going to deal with infections again because that's just not my reality. But I got diflucan for the yeast infection. It went away, but then I got BV that did not go away for 2 years again. And so at this time, I did not know about what I know now about restoration and not just killing things off, but I was so heavily deep in survival mode because at this point, I didn't really have any money. My job was giving me that much hours. Um, I also did not have a place to live. So I'm not gonna say that I was homeless because I wasn't, because I was living with friends, but my household was really toxic, so I left to go stay with friends. And so technically I displaced myself. I had no money. I was struggling really, really, really badly, like every area of my life. And I knew that me going to the doctor's office was not going to help because all they're going to do is put me up with medications and make everything worse. So I didn't want to have to deal with medications and things getting worse and not having the money to eat healthy and not having the money to really heal myself. So I just dealt with the BB for 2 years because I genuinely did not have I did not have it in me to figure it out. I did not have the money to figure it out. Mentally, I was not in a good place at all to figure it out. I wasn't really having sex anyway. So, like, for me, it was kind of just like on the back burner. So now with these BV symptoms, I was dealing with like odor and discharge and like stuff like that. And then that's when I ended up 2 years later when I was more in a financial place. I was like, enough of this shit. I'm never dealing with this again. And then I take a test with Evie, and then I heal myself in 7 days. And this time I know now when you kill off something, you have to restore your microbiome and continuously keep it restored so that it does not go back to being in balance where you would deal with recurring vaginal infections again. So I'm not going to go into the second half of my story just because this episode is mainly focused on yeast infections, and my story, the second part of my story, is dealing with BV. So when it comes to yeast infections, um, I want you guys to all know it is possible to heal from it naturally, and it is possible to heal from it without medications. So when you're dealing with it chronically, obviously if it's a one-time thing, you can get diflucan. I still do recommend you following up with a probiotic 2 hours after diflucan or after an antibiotic so that you can restore your microbiome. Because what people don't know is that medications like antifungals, antibacterials, or which is antibiotics, they not only wipe away your bad bacteria, but they wipe away your good bacteria and your good microbes because they don't differentiate between good versus bad microbes. So they can wipe away like your good fungi, your good bacteria, all these things. So with any of these vaginal medications, whether it's intravaginal or whether it's oral, always follow up 2 hours after with a vaginal based probiotic. In my free vaginal healing supplement guide, I have probiotics that I recommend on there. I have to update it because I want to add some more that I like now. But it should be a vaginal focused probiotic that has L. crispatus and other lactobacillus species because you want your vagina to be dominated by lactobacillus. So that's number one. So, yeast infections are not just about taking antifungal. Yeast, candida, which is what causes yeast infections, and it can be either candida glabrata or commonly candida albicans. A lot of people sometimes may be testing negative for candida albicans, but still having yeast infection symptoms. It can be candida glabrata, or it can be what's called cytolytic vaginosis. So if your doctor is testing you for yeast and you're testing negative but you're having symptoms, doctors don't usually test for candida glabrata or for CV, which is cytolytic vaginosis. So if that's the case, I recommend you getting tested with Evie. Evie is what helped me to heal my last recurring vaginal infection. It's been over a year since I healed. And Evie is an at-home vaginal microbiome testing company that checks for over 700 microbes that your normal GYN does not test for. Your normal GYN is checking for maybe 5 to 6. Evie's checking for 700. So Evie can literally check your whole vaginal microbiome and get to the root cause of what is causing your specific vaginal infections or pH imbalances. So Evie, I have a link in my link tree to get $20 off of your first lab test with Evie. So you can get $20 off of my link. But you may be having Candida glabrata, it may be CV. So CV is basically when you have too much lactobacilli and it can cause yeast infection kind of symptoms. So it's not a yeast infection, it's actually when your pH is too acidic, so it's below 3.8. And the symptoms are similar to a yeast infection, but it's not a yeast infection. It just means that you have too much good bacteria. So get checked for those also. But candida itself is an opportunistic microbe, which means that the organism normally can exist already in the body in smaller amounts. But when the conditions become favorable, it takes the opportunity to overgrow. So yeast doesn't suddenly appear. Yeast is also actually a very slow growing organism. So usually if you're dealing with yeast infections chronically or candida overgrowth, it means that it's kind of been brewing in your system for a while before the symptoms actually appear and showed up as a yeast infection. So it's not just a matter of the yeast suddenly appearing, it's a matter of the question is really how and why did the environment become favorable for overgrowth? So yeast thrives when your environment, your microbiome supports it. So there's many different causations to yeast infections. So when people ask me how do I heal yeast infection, how do you heal yeast infection, I cannot give a direct answer, not because I'm being stingy, but because I need to know exactly what is causing your yeast infection. Because a common cause of yeast infection is blood sugar dysregulation or imbalance. So diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance, having a high fasting insulin or high fasting glucose, having a high A1C. These all are blood sugar dysregulation issues, and that can cause yeast infections because it creates a sugary environment where yeast thrive. So it can be blood sugar issues. It can be chronic stress because stress also spikes your blood sugar, which would then give a favorable environment for yeast. And stress also suppresses your immune system and changes your vaginal microbiome. It can be a biofilm. So, biofilm is basically when there's a waxy substance around the microbe that protects it from being killed off. It can be from repeated antibiotic or antifungal use that depleted your good bacteria and your good microbes in general, which then allow for the candida to overgrow. It can be immune dysfunction. It can be constipation. It can be gut health issues. It can be poor sleep. It can be nervous system like dysregulation. So there's so many different reasons that can cause yeast infection. So people are always asking me how to get a yeast infection. I need to know the root cause. And I would only know that if I'm working with you one to one because I do a full evaluation. So that's number one. That's what's really important to know. And that's why it's also important that you're not just doing oregano oil or garlic cloves and stuff like that to heal, because you can be thinking that that's going to help you when in reality, you may be pre diabetic and not even realize that you're pre diabetic. And that can be what's causing your yeast infection. So there's many different reasons as to what can cause a yeast infection. So Candida itself, let's talk about this because many people think yeast is only a vaginal issue, but sometimes chronic yeast can be more systemic. So there is a massive gut vagina connection. So some of you are probably familiar with the gut brain axis, which is basically a bidirectional communication pathway in which your gut and your brain are communicating all day long. But there are several axes in the body. There's the gut skin axis, there's the gut liver axis, and there's the gut vagina axis. So your gut and your vagina are constantly communicating and they exchange microbes. So how healthy your gut is determines how healthy your vaginal microbiome is. So when you have a more diverse gut microbiome, it can then exchange more lactobacilli with your vaginal microbiome and create a vaginal microbiome that's dominated by lactobacilli, which is what you need to prevent any STDs, STIs, and also reoccurring vaginal infections. So sometimes chronic yeast infections can be related to larger gut imbalances, which include candida overgrowth specifically in the gut. This you can figure out if you get a GI map test. So in the Vag Reset Advanced program, I offer a GI map test as a part of that program. And so a GI map test is basically a stool test that acts similarly to EVI, as in it gives you a whole entire breakdown of your microbiome. So it shows you what bacteria you have, any fungi, any viruses, any pathogens. It checks for your digestive issues. It checks if you have an allergy or a reactivity to gluten. It checks for your inflammation. It checks for leaky gut. So it checks for if you want to know what's going on with your gut, if you're having any gut symptoms, a GI map test is the wave. And so that one is included in my Vag Reset Advanced program. So that Vag Reset Advanced program, you get a GI map test interpretation and the GI map test, and you also get EVI test as well. So a GI map test can show you if you have candida overgrowth systemically in your gut. But typically, you'll notice if you have candida overgrowth, not only will you usually have recurring vaginal infections, you may have digestive issues, you may have really bad bloating, you may have really bad sugar cravings, you may experience skin symptoms like rashes and acne and stuff. You may deal with really bad fatigue, and you also will probably have like reoccurring pH imbalances and stuff. So, this is why the solution depends on the root cause because some women can have recurring vaginal infections without having candida overgrowth in their gut. So there's many nuances to this, which is why it's really important to work with somebody who knows how to deal with chronic vaginal infections. So let's see. So overall, that's why it's also really important to just really know the root cause because like I gave you guys the example already, if someone's chronic yeast infections are driven by insulin resistance or diabetes, then the blood sugar needs attention. But if it's a more systemic gut health overgrowth of candida, then that requires a more systemic approach. So different root cause calls for different protocols. So that's why individualization is really important when it comes to health in general, not just reoccurring vaginal infections, but this is why you shouldn't be getting advice from just anyone on the internet because everyone comes from different paths of life. People usually have good intentions, but what works for them may not work for you. So now when it comes to my own personal framework for healing chronic yeast infections, and again, this is just general education. It's not an individualized protocol. I need to be working with you to know what exactly is causing your yeast infections. But in my program, I focus on three phases. Phase one is supporting your drainage pathways and your lymphatic detox support. Even before phase one, I require all my clients to do tests with Evie so I can see what is going on in the microbiome. Do they have CV? Do they have Candida albicans? Is it Candida glabrata? Is it even a yeast infection? Is it mycoplasma? Is it rheoplasma? So we need to know first what it is. Then, depending on what it is, I want to maybe ask for further testing. I want to see maybe your iron levels. I want to see maybe your vitamin D levels. I want to see your blood sugar labs. I want to see your lipid panel, which is your cholesterol and your triglycerides. So I can kind of have a full picture idea of what is going on and what is causing these things. Then, once I have an answer from that, I'm going to start off with supporting your drainage pathways and your lymphatic system. So, detox support. So, I want to ensure that you are getting you having daily bowel movements, lymphatic movement, detox pathways are supported. So I want to support your liver, your kidneys, circulation in your body. So these are all important because if your pathways are sluggish, symptoms can always keep recycling. So it's really important that during this phase we're focusing on these things. After this phase, I want to focus on reducing the overgrowth of candida. And if you have a biofilm, this is usually where I want to do the biofilm busting. So, biofilm busting and also using antifungals to reduce the overgrowth. So, the biofilm busting is going to help to remove the biofilm around the fungi, the candida. And then we're going to be using herbal antifungals to then be able to target it to then decrease it and bring it back down. So basically, we want to humble the fuck out of this candida. So we want to remove the biofilm, reduce the candida overgrowth, um, and we want to basically do that through targeted antifungals, herbal support, and individualized strategies. So the key word individualized, because not everybody needs the same protocol. For one person, I may recommend berberine. For another person, I may recommend garlic. Another person, olive oregano. So it just depends on what that person is dealing with specifically, because everybody is different. So this phase can last anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the person, how fast their body heals and cooperates, depending on also how cooperative they are themselves, also depending on their symptoms. So that's that phase. Now, phase three is basically microbiome restoration. So, this is the part that many women skip, and which is why they end up getting reoccurring vaginal infections again because they did the killing without restoring the microbiome to a level in which they have lots of good bacteria to prevent this from ever coming back again. So, instead of us focusing on just olive oregano or garlic or endless antimicrobials without restoring, that if you do that, you're going to continuously wiping out things without rebuilding, which means that you still don't have good beneficial bacteria. Your diversity is not great, and also your resilience is not great either. So things can just come right back. So during this phase, we focus on restoring the microbiome with probiotics appropriate for the vagina, prebiotic rich foods because prebiotics feed probiotics. Um, I may also want to add in some immune supportive things so that you can continue that down the lines, and that can include maybe omega 3s, vitamin D3. This can be a whole food vitamin C supplement. This can be a monthly intravaginal probiotic suppository to basically maintain your vagina. This can look like you taking S. boulardii, which stands for Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a beneficial fungi that your gut can benefit from when you're dealing with chronic yeast infections. I have that in my vaginal free supplement guide. I may require you to continue with some immune support supplements. And I also would require continuation of probiotics, prebiotics, and also continuing the lifestyle changes that we've made in this. So, like eating breakfast within the first hour waking up, avoiding caffeine on an empty stomach to prevent cortisol spikes, always pairing your caffeine with fats and protein like whole milk, heavy cream, grass-fed butter, or ghee. Making sure that all of your meals have at least 30 grams of protein, plus fibrous carbs, plus healthy fats. Making sure that you're eating every 3 to 4 hours for blood sugar stability and for cortisol stability. Making sure that you are getting good sleep every night, so 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Hydrating with minerals daily. Moving your body consistently, so every day getting at least 5K steps to be non-sedentary, and then also getting other physical activity throughout the week, and also regulating your nervous system to ensure that you're not getting cortisol spikes, which will then cause blood sugar spikes, which can then cause you to get recurring yeast infections again. So these are just like basic tips that the client would usually continue with. Um, And that is basically what I do to help heal yeast infections. I also would require clients to do mindset work. So every client's mindset protocol is different depending on what works for them. So the mindset piece is really important because your subconscious mind plays does what's called confirmation bias. It confirms all of your thoughts and beliefs to be true. So when working with me, we basically do a deep dive into your subconscious mind to see what are beliefs you have in there that are causing you to continuously manifest recurring vaginal infections in your life. So I focus on the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane, which are the three planes of existence, because they all work together to help you manifest whatever you want. So now with the mindset piece, I'll probably do an episode on mindset sometime in the future. But your mind plays a big role because whatever you believe and whatever you expect, whatever you assume in your reality, is going to be your reality. And so your subconscious mind carries up to 11 million thoughts and beliefs at a time. And again, it performs confirmation bias. So if you have deep rooted beliefs about your health, you have a poor health identity, so you don't really believe that you can have good health without maintaining it heavily. You believe that something's always wrong with you, or that you always have chronic vaginal infections, or that your vagina is fucked up, or that your body is hard to maintain. It can be so many different things. But when you have those beliefs ingrained in your subconscious mind, even down the line of healing, you can always resort back to chronic vaginal infection. So mindset plays a huge role. In my 30-day Vag Reset ebook, I give you a 30-day mindset routine to follow, which includes my vaginal healing meditations, my vaginal healing subliminals, my vaginal healing sleep tapes, how to follow a strict mental diet when it comes to um, manifesting perfect health. And so the Vag Reset ebook is a great blueprint to have a 30-day subconscious mental routine to help you reprogram your subconscious mind. And you can follow that routine post healing, just to keep your mindset intact to prevent that from ever happening again. The only thing is that it doesn't have to be that intense post healing. It can just be more like a maintenance protocol that you can do. But if you want that protocol, that's in my 30-day Vag Reset ebook. And then also, what's really important is that we're making sure that my client's nervous system is as regulated as much as possible moving forward. Because when your nervous system is not regulated, I'm going to have a guest speaker soon on the nervous system, so I'm not going to go too much into that right now. But when your nervous system is not regulated, that's really important because your nervous system can spike your cortisol, which can then cause you to have reoccurring yeast infections again in the future if you're not regulated. So this is important also because when you're healed, or when you're healing from recurring vaginal infections, you still may not trust your body to heal, and you may still be very paranoid around what you do in life because you're so used to having the chronic vaginal infections. And once you heal them, you're so scared of getting it back again that you're always paranoid. Whether you're paranoid to have sex again, you're paranoid to even do things during sex, you're paranoid to wear certain things, you're paranoid of eating sugar and getting a yeast infection again. You're paranoid of going in a pool. Like there are so many paranoias that can come after healing because you're scared of getting recurring vaginal infections again. And you can be healed, but you still will not feel good if your nervous system is so dysregulated because you're scared of getting the vaginal infections again. This is why you have to regulate your nervous system to tell your body that you are safe now, that the yeast infections are gone forever now, and that it's no longer your reality. And so the nervous system regulation plays a really big role because you have to train your body into feeling safe and to not expect and assume reoccurring vaginal infections again. Otherwise, you can be completely healed, but then still be living in fear of getting a reoccurring yeast infection again. So nervous system regulation can be done through daily breath work. It's you telling your body that you're safe and speaking to your body as if it's your inner child. So you are safe, you are protected, you are healed, you are healthy, whatever you have to tell yourself. It can be through breath work, it can be through my vaginal healing meditations on my YouTube channel. By the way, as I mentioned to you guys, my sleep tape, my meditations, my subliminals, my affirmation tracks are all on my YouTube channel for free. So you can use my meditations to help you heal. You can do breath work. You can do EFT tapping to help with nervous system regulation. You can do grounding. You can do walking. It's whatever helps you. But regulating your nervous system during the process and also after the process is really important so that you don't end up manifesting recurring vaginal or yeast infections ever again. So that is basically what I focus on is nutrition. It's your mindset and nervous system regulation. And so This concludes basically a whole entire breakdown on how to heal your body from chronic vaginal infections for good. If you need more one-to-one support, I highly encourage you all to join either the Microbiome Makeover, that's my monthly membership, that's the Patreon, where we do daily Q&A, and we also do a weekly live Q&A per request by the paid clients. And I post free education in there every single day. So that's Microbiome Makeover, and that's 50 a month, and it comes with a 7-day free trial. Or if you want more, if you want a very individualized one-to-one approach and support, then join the Vag Reset program. That program is 3 months of one-to-one support. I give you your own protocol. I give you supplements. You can speak with me 24/7 on how to heal. My clients see major success and results from working with me one-to-one. So I highly encourage you to do that. I also have payment plans for that. So that's the Vag Reset. The Vag Reset Advance comes with a GI map test. So that comes with the GI map test, and that comes also with the EVI test. And so you have options. So there are ways to work with me in my link tree. So you can either choose to do the microbiome makeover, you can choose to do the Vag Reset Vag Reset program or Vag Reset Advance. But if you don't trust yourself or know how to do this on your own, then I highly, highly recommend that you work with me so that you're not constantly trying to figure things out, buying things and wasting your time, continuously feeling lost and confused and anxious, and just not feeling confident. The quickest way to get from point A to point Z for most people is to work with somebody. So if you really are tired of that cycle and you're ready to break free from the antibiotics, the antifungals, the not being able to have sex, this ruining your relationship, this ruining your self esteem. You feel like you can't eat anything and you're only eating 5 things a day because you're scared to eat or you're scared to even walk out in public. Like this and these infections can literally ruin your life. Literally, I've had women that were dealing with it for 10 years who are now free from it. I have women who have been throwing up from antibiotics to now they're working with me and now they feel so much more confident that they know what to do to heal. So I highly encourage, and this is for women who are serious. If you are serious and you're ready to be done with this, work with me. That's all I have to say is work with me. Otherwise, utilize my free resources that I have on my YouTube channel. I post on Threads every day. I post on TikTok every day. So just take advantage of all the free resources that I have available. But otherwise, that concludes today's episode. So I hope this gave you guys enough knowledge to know how to heal from chronic vaginal infections, specifically yeast infections. Also, there are some hygiene things to keep in mind as well. So, obviously, like cotton underwear, if you do go commando, don't go commando in polyester or synthetic fabrics. Make sure that you're going commando where like you can actually breathe, like a skirt or something. Or if you're going to be wearing polyester clothes or synthetic fabrics, make sure that you are still wearing cotton underwear. On my Amazon storefront, I have the cotton underwear that I wear. Um, of course, make sure to keep down there as dry as possible. So after the shower, make sure that you are blow drying on a cool setting or drying off with paper towel and not using a towel. Keeping the area dry from like bathing suits as much as possible. Basically keeping it a moist free environment. My gosh, as much as possible. Um, that's for hygiene. For hydration, drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces every day is really important. I'm making sure I'm not forgetting anything else before I get off of this episode. Um, Organic cotton underwear, hydration, keeping dry as much as possible. Be mindful when you're doing sexual things of not like using anything like sugary down there, of course. And making sure that your partner has good hygiene and that they have clean fingers and that they're cleaned as well. Using condoms that your body can tolerate. Using coconut oil as a lube if you're in a safe, protected relationship. Using coconut oil on there to moisturize can also be great for the external moisturization because coconut oil is antifungal. So that's really, really important to know. Um, I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything in particular. Also, I recommend eliminating alcohol completely, or when you're healing, cutting out alcohol in general. If you know, if you know that when you smoke weed, you eat a lot, I probably cut back on the weed smoking or edibles temporarily so that you don't end up overeating. You can also consider using organic menstrual products because I've seen lots of things of always having lots of toxins in them, and menstrual products can disrupt your microbiome. So personally, I like the brands Cora. There are other brands that I like that I can't remember the name of. I like Honey Pot. I like Cora. What's that other brand? Oh my god, I have it somewhere. Let me double check. Actually, um, what brand is this? Let me see. Honey Pot, Cora. There's a brand of period underwear that I like. I'm looking for it now to find the name for you guys. I think their period underwear is great. Oh, Rael, Rael. So I would recommend probably organic period products as well. And when you are on your period, I'm trying to stay dry as much as possible by rinsing off frequently the water so that the alkalinity of the blood doesn't cause more imbalances, keeping that area dry after the shower with the blow dryer. Let me see what else I should tell you guys. One thing that's really important is do not let your partner constantly come inside of you if you're not trying to conceive. And if your vaginal microbiome is not strong enough, because that's going to continuously weaken your vaginal microbiome. Mm, let's see. I'm scrolling through my notes so that because I really don't want to forget anything because I didn't create notes for this episode. I was just using my own just speaking and also reviewing the Patreon post I had posted today. Let's see. Also, of course, like no douching, no scented soaps, no scented wipes, no scented sprays. Don't use regular body wash down there. I recommend if you want to use a wash down there. I recommend using oh my gosh, what's it called? Like an acidified wash, and only focus on the external, the vulvar and the groin and the crease, and not in the inner part where the hair does not grow. So only on the skin part, because you do want to wash that, yes. Loom is a great brand. It's an acidified wash. And also the brand Meraki Co. The owner, her name is Gianna Jera. She actually is a biomedical engineer that focuses on vaginal health, and she has a company called Meraki Co. And she creates vaginal focused products like vaginal probiotics. And in my link tree, if you want to get her probiotics, which they're great because I trust her. Also, she has a new soap called a barrier soap, where it's not necessarily a soap. I forgot what she words it as, but you can use it to wash your external vulva down below um, without it disrupting your microbiome. So I just ordered that because I want to try it out. But you can use something like that, like her barrier bar or her vaginal probiotics. And I have a link where you can get a discount to order from her. So you can use something like that, but that's only on the external labia. Otherwise, I don't recommend any other washes like Summer's Eve or anything like that because those can typically kill off your good and your bad bacteria, and it can cause you to get recurring vaginal infections again. So don't use regular body wash or exfoliant down there because they can disrupt your natural oils and cause pH imbalances. Use either Loom, which is an acidified wash, meaning that it does not strip your skin microbiome of too much good bacteria, and it's safe to use externally, nothing internally, or the barrier bar, or if you want to be all natural, like what I usually do, I do diluted ACV rinses for the external, which is me just putting a little bit of ACV in a small cup of water and then using that to rinse off and keeping that ACV on there for like a few minutes, and after that, blow drying afterwards. Of course, don't linger in wet clothes. Um, don't always wear synthetic panty liners. Make sure that you're wearing breathable cotton down there. Um, don't use the towel down there, wiping from front to back. Don't always overwash or use sponges, loofahs, or washcloths down there. I recommend usually like a silicone body scrub or using a new cotton washcloth every single day. Of course, peeing after sex. And now this is officially it that I have for all the tips for yeast infection. So I intend that this episode gave you guys all I need to know in order to heal from chronic vaginal infections, particularly yeast infections. And please make sure to leave a rating and review down below. And I'll see you guys all in the next episode. Bye, everyone.